In 2013, he joined Sheila Skolnick as partner in the Business Doctors. He uses his extensive media experience coupled with his unique and very successful sales techniques and style to have something extraordinary to offer when consulting about media sales and closing the sales. And now I'd like to introduce Michael DeGudas.
Thank you, Sheila. All right. The art of the close. That's the topic today. And you didn't really think of it as an art, did you? An art form. But it's so important. It's so important to everything in life. It's not just about sales. It's about interpersonal communications between your wife and you. I mean, how many times have you tried to sell an idea to her? Or selling to your children about an idea of doing something over something else. Or selling to a vendor, trying to get them to be your vendor and doing different things. So it's not only just selling a product per se. It's like when I try to convince my wife that we should watch The Mets as opposed to The Good Wife. And by the way, The Good Wife is a really great show. I don't lose that argument too well. But anyway, moving right along. Closing is a crucial part of the sale. It's the most crucial part of the sale. So many people do not close well. How many people here would say they're good closers? Look at you. You're all good closers. I knew you'd be a good closer, right? Kenny's probably a dynamite closer. But closing is more than just that. It's like I said, it's for everything that you do in life. There's three parts to a close. One is the knowledge of the customer. One is the actual knowledge that you have in your brain and in your atmosphere that you have at your office and all your products and services that you offer. And the third part is the actual close itself. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Let's talk about the knowledge of the customer. I think it's probably the most important thing. Knowing your customer and knowing what their needs are. Because if you know what their needs are and what their hot buttons are, then 9 out of 10 times you're going to make that sale. You know, back when I had my production company, if I had a new account that I was trying to woo, I would take them out golfing. And not that I was a great golfer or anything, but I'd shot in the 90s, so I didn't embarrass myself out there. But I would take them out golfing, and in a 4.5 hour period, I would know everything about that customer. I'd know how he was when he was happy, how he was when he was frustrated, how he was when he was really angry and just about would throw his clubs in the lake because he missed some easy shot. You got to know that customer inside and out. I got to know so much about him, and after about 10 holes, I mean, what kind of other business experience can you have where somebody hugs you after 3 hours knowing them for just 3 hours because you made a putt or something like that? I believed in really getting to be almost friends with my customers. As a matter of fact, when I retired from my last job, I had 6 or 7 of my customers call me and say, like, who are we going to talk to? You know, we never get to talk to any of our vendors. You're fun to talk to. We have a ball. When we go to trade shows, we always have a lot of laughs. I'll be really frank with you. It was very difficult for them to say no to me. It was very difficult for them to turn me down because I was their friend. And I would say our prices of our goods were probably 10 to 15% higher than anybody else's, but I got the job anyway. And I really believed that them liking me was a good thing. But I got to know them. I got to really know them inside and out. And the other thing that you want to do is when you're meeting somebody for the first time especially, you got to be observant. Really be observant. For instance, you might say, I'll tell you what, we'll meet in your offices. And so when you go to their office, you might go on a plant tour, right? Or you might go on an office tour. So you got to watch him. You got to watch how he works with his employees. Do they like him? Is there a good atmosphere? in the office or in the plant. This is a kind of a long story, but it's a good one. I was shooting in Russia back in 1989. It was before the transition took place from the old Soviet Russia to the new Russia. And so I was meeting with the Minister of Education, who was authorizing us to go in there and shoot this film. And he assigned to me my assistant, which was a KGB guy, right? And this KGB guy was with us all the time. So we had this one shot that we had to take of this plant. They made asbestos. And the guy says, "Niet, no, shoot plant is very bad place. Cannot shoot plant." I said, I'm thinking back how he was with his boss, with the Minister of Education. And I remembered and I observed that he was afraid, really afraid. He was cowering. He was very subservient in his body language with him. So I said, his name was Igor, kind of a trite name, but that's really what his name was. And I said to Igor, I'm going to have to gather my crew up. We're going to have to get back on the plane, and we're going to have to leave here. And I'm going to have to tell the Minister of Education that we're not going to make a film. His eyes got real wide, and he got kind of scared. He goes, "Okay," he says, "you can shoot plant, but I'm with you every moment. I want to know what you're going to do and who you're going to see." He was afraid. But see, I observed that in the early going when I first met. And that's what you have to do when you're meeting a potential client. Observe. And I think that when you do that, sometimes it means a sale. It means a sale. So, the second part is the knowledge of your product. Now that sounds like, of course we all know our products, right? I'm sure you know every facet of law, Bill, right?
For my area, yeah.
Yeah. But there might be other areas that you don't know much about, obviously, and that you might get interested in. But in your area, you want to know everything. You want to be confident and you want to know everything. I'm sure you know every chemical known to man that you can put on your carpeting, right, Kenny?
Yeah, close.
You know, but there might be something out there, right? You're always learning, aren't you?
Every day.
You've got to get to know your products. I worked for almost 14 years with a chemical company. Now, I think I was the president of my 5th grade science club. But other than that, that was all the chemicals I ever really dealt with, and that's the only chemistry I ever had. But at the same time, I knew that I was going to have to come up with some jargon when I'm trying to sell. I'm going to have to come up with some basic thought processes that these people are going to throw at me, or I'm going to be stupid. I remember the first couple of sales calls I went on, I didn't know the answers. And there's really nothing worse for a salesman is not to know an answer. And say, gee, I'm really sorry, I don't know that. I'm going to have to go back to my boss or or the chemist in our area to answer that question. And you look bad. So what I went to my boss and I said to him, here's what I want to do. I want to go to every technical show that we have that's in the industry. I want to go to all the technical shows. And I did. And I'm just sitting there and just imbibing all these phrases and all these thought processes. I didn't even know what any of them meant, really. But I would just regurgitate them to my clients or potential clients, and they all thought I knew what I was talking about. You know, and it wasn't that I didn't know what I was talking about, it's just that I finally knew the right words to say, and I knew enough to sell. You know, if it was a real technical thing, we would get further along in the process. But it was a thing where you can never really know too much about your product. The other thing is to be creative. You know, you might think, you know, what I've got is pat. You know, okay, I got a good thing going here. I got a great law practice. I've got a great accounting practice. But there might be some other things that you haven't thought of. There might be some other things that you just hasn't tricked you. So I used to go to trade shows a lot. And I wouldn't just stand behind the booth either. I would always take an hour off or 2 hours off, and I'd walk the show and I'd learn things. I remember one time I was walking the show and I saw this fellow, and he had a spray starch. He was from a spray starch company. And he's spraying his trousers, and then he was ironing it and showing how it worked and all this sort of thing. It was a really nice product and all that.
Follows on.
No, it was on ironing board. It was a little hot, but you know. I looked at that and something in my brain just clicked. So when I got home, I got this guy's spray starch. I got it at the store. I took it back and I gave it to my chemist. And I said, we had this product that was a water-based product that made your trousers or your shirt waterproof. But it needed heat. So I said, mix this spray starch with our product, put it in a spray can, and then let's try it out. So the guy did it, right? It worked. And not only we had a perfectly starched pair of pants or shirt that was also waterproof. It was beautiful. So then I took it to the customer and I says, you know, I've got a great idea for your product. And to this day, actually within 7 months, we had our first order of over $300,000 worth of product. And to this day, they're still selling that product. And probably, I think they did well over $2 million last year, just selling that one product. And that all was just an idea. Just an idea. You're walking down a hallway in a trade show and you have an idea like that. So you can come up with things. You can be creative. You can't just sit on your laurels. Sometimes it's good to just think out of, I don't like the term out of the box, but for lack of a better term, think out of the box. Now, the third part of the close, obviously, is the close itself. Now, how many people, what percentage, there is actual percentage of salespeople that have a problem asking for the sale? What do you think it is?
Probably 80%.
80%? Good answer. What do you think, Toronto?
60.
60, okay. 75%. 75% have a problem asking for the sale. It boggles my mind when I think about that. Why is that? Why is it?
Afraid of
Justin,
rejection.
what do you think?
Worried about rejection.
Yeah, it's rejection.
Rejection.
100%, you know, that fear that they're going to get turned down.
You're absolutely right. So there's a couple of different types of close to help with that. And one of it's called, what I call a soft close, where if you've got a customer that's sort of wishy-washy and they never want to, it never seems like they want to go to the close, what you do is you try to make it their idea. You know people like that, where they always want things to be their idea? So what you do is you sort of give the deal to them and let them come up with the idea that, hey, you know what, maybe we ought to buy your stuff. You can kind of turn it around on them. And it works. It's only maybe 10 to 15% of all of closes, but when you run into that hard guy that is not responding normally to your techniques, then that's a good idea. The hard close really is still the most predominant one, where you just walk out there and you've given them all the features and benefits, and then you go, well, you know, it does this, this, and this, and we can get it for this, this, and this, and here's the price, everything's in line. What do you think? Is that so hard to do? But people have a tremendous fear of doing that for some reason. What I've always found is, even if you get rejected, it oftentimes can just be a no on its way to a yes. Because you just didn't present enough, or you missed out on some key thing that he wasn't looking at or she wasn't looking at. And so it's in sales, that hard close is still your best. Now, the third close, and really it's my favorite actually, is called the assumptive close. Now by that, right, the assumptive close is assuming that somebody's going to go with you. And it's a little nuance where you can be talking to the guy and you think you got him, right? You got him right here. You're ready to put him away. And so what you say is, so once we get that first order in, you know what? I'll tell you what. Do you want us to ship A first or you want us to ship B first? Now the guy looks at you and he goes, you know, I think we'll ship A first. So what he's done is he's closed himself. You assume that the deal was done. And he agrees with you and you go on. Now he can turn you down there. And he can say, wait a minute, you know, we don't have a deal. And you haven't lost anything really. But it's kind of a nice technique. And a real nice technique. You know, I remember, this is more of an interpersonal kind of thing, but about quite a while ago, I had this great date, right? It was an awesome date. we had been on the phone a few times, and then I had this great date, and it went really, really well, and I was out of state, and I flew back to Michigan. And I get home, and I have this, somehow I had a picture that was taken of me, and I don't have that many good, I think this side's a pretty good side, but I don't have that many good pictures of myself, but it was a good little smiley picture of myself. And so what I did is I put it in a frame, I threw it in the mail to this girl, right? And 3 days later, I get a phone call. She goes, "What's this?" I said, "Well, what I was thinking is you could put this frame up next to your bed on your end table, right? And you could, in the morning when you wake up, you could look at this nice smiling face and feel a little warm and fuzzy. What do you think?" So that was 23 years ago, and she's my wife. Same girl. So that was my best close of all. Thank you very much.